So in this video, we are going to revisit an old project. If you remember a while back, I tried to make a Halloween rope bowl with glow-in-the-dark thread, and that really didn't turn out too well. No, I didn't like that at all. All right, we'll insert the thumbnail for that right now. Yeah, I know, it didn't quite turn out the way I expected. I know in the video I even said so. And so I thought, well, it's been sitting around here ever since that project. It wasn't good enough to sell to anybody. I didn't like it. It was just floppy. It was not a good project. Hey, you try sometimes, you try something new, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But I've got a great idea, and I figured out a way I can recycle this project. Yep, I've already started pulling it apart. And I figured out that I can take a seam ripper and just pull it underneath the zigzag stitching and then pull it apart. And so I am going to reuse this dyed cord and then some fresh natural colored cord, and I am going to make a new bowl. So this new bowl will have a square shaped bottom, and then I'm also going to show you how to flare out the top. And so we're going to make it with this old cord and then some new cord, so it'll be a two-tone project. So on this orange and black cord, we're going to use black thread, and then on the natural colored cord, we'll use white. Anyway, so I am going to show you how I rip this apart, and then we'll get over to my sewing machine and we'll start putting the project together. So I'll put it in time lapse and we'll rip this apart real quick, and then we'll get busy on the sewing machine, and we'll talk about it when we get over there. All right, Busters, I've gotten all the glow-in-the-dark thread cut off. Hey, if anyone, had a similar project, really you could cut it off here now and stitch that down. You'd have a real nice trivet. But we're going to go ahead because I know you want to see how to make this square rope bowl, and that's what I'm going to show you. Hey, I'll let you in on a little secret too. I said this thing's been sitting around for about a year. Well, I usually keep, if I buy some shirts for tie-dyeing, I just throw them in here. If I've processed them and they're waiting to be worked on, I throw them in this bowl. But if it's empty, then my cat Squirt loved to lay in this thing. She figured this rope bowl was her bed in my workroom. So she'll miss it, but she's got plenty of other places to lay. Anyway, let's keep going. We're going to finish this off. And if you haven't been able to see it very well, what I'm using is a seam ripper, and I'm just going right in between the layer. Well, I'm going under the stitching, but in between two rows of cords, and that's how I'm cutting it, just like that. Anyway, that's how I'm doing it. Okay, Busters, almost finished here. Not going to go all the way into the center because we've got this X pattern here. I've got enough cord to do probably two bowls actually, but just wanted to show you really though that if you have one of these projects and you're not really satisfied with it, that it's not impossible to take apart. While I'm working on just this last little bit also, let me talk to you about, if you are interested in making one of these. For me, I find really two good ways of putting color on the bowl. I either use just the straight cord as it comes in the package, which is that natural cotton color, and then I use variegated thread. I like using variegated thread just because it gives it multi-colors. But then the other way I've done it on several projects is taking the raw cotton cording and treating it like you would if you were going to do tie-dye. So you unwrap it from its packaging, and then you could put it in a garment bag, which would probably help keep it from getting too tangled up. I never have. I mean, it's not been that big a deal to untangle it, but do the pre-wash on it like you would any t-shirt, and then after it's done washing and spinning out, don't bother to dry it, just put it in your soda ash for 20 minutes to soak, and then after it's been soaked, then the best method I find to dye it is ice dyeing. And so just kind of scrunch it all up in a container. You can put a barrier around it to kind of contain the ice, and just dye it whatever colors you want. That's what I did with this. I dyed it actually orange and black only, and the black actually split into several colors just because of the nature of that black. I've gotten purples and dark blues, and then where some of the black and orange is kind of melted together, then I have a little bit of browns. So yeah, ice dyeing is a really good way. I've seen videos where people have taken different colors of cloth and wrapped it around the cording. For me, that's like way too much work for the result that you get. I mean, it is colorful, but I like my results, and it is a whole lot easier, and I'm set up for dye. So it's like, yeah, I'd rather dye the cord and have it done, and or use colorful thread, and that works really great for me. Okay, I think that's about as far as I'm going to go into the center there. And so the other thing I'm going to do now with this cord, because there's still a lot of loose thread on the cord, is I'm going to just kind of ball it up, throw it in the dryer on kind of refresh, and hopefully that kind of knocks out all this loose thread that I cut, and we'll take it from there. So after I run it through the dryer, we'll come back in here and get the sewing machine set up, and then I'll show you how to make the square bottom rope bowl. Okay, see you in a little bit. All right, Busters, so I've got to get my sewing machine set up so we can do this square bottom rope bowl. While I'm doing that, I'll talk to you a little bit about what I had to do to clean up the old rope from that old bowl. So let me start taking the machine apart. Anyway, it was a bit of a process. I had mentioned that I would just simply put the old rope in the dryer in hopes that the threads would come off of the threads would come out of the old cord. Well, some did, but not nearly enough. It didn't work out the way I had hoped it would. Then my next thought was I'd take a lint roller, and I could take and roll the lint roller over the cord, and that would pull the threads out. Well, that didn't even work as well as putting the cord in the dryer. So ended up having to sit in front of the TV for a couple nights and just picking out threads and throwing them in the trash and picking out threads until I made it from one end to the other. But I got all the threads cleared out, and so now it's ready to be used. Anyway, so that was a little bit of more of a pain than I expected it to be, but all in all, at least I'm able to recycle this old project, and that's the whole idea of this project is, hey, if you have something that didn't quite go the way you wanted it to, that doesn't mean you have to throw it away. You might be able to upcycle it to a new project. Alright, so I've got the machine out of its hole because I want to use my sewing extension bed for the rope bowl, and you'll see why here a little bit later on, but this has to come off because ultimately with this type of bowl, at one point I am going to take the table off and we're going to actually put the bowl around this part of the sewing machine. This is designed to be able to slip like pant legs and sleeves, so you have the ability to hem around the bottom of a pant leg or the cuff or a sleeve. So I'm going to use that ability to put something round over this part of the sewing machine later on. But right now I need to put the table on it. So that way we can start building the bowl out here flat. Alright, so let me move the camera down here lower so when I start sewing you can see what I'm doing. Alright Busters, so I've got my platform set up for my bowl on my sewing machine. Before we get started though, we have to change the needle. If you remember previous rope bowls, we want to use a denim needle. And you want to use really a fresh needle for just about every project. So I'm going to change this out now because it's been a while since I've used my machine and I couldn't tell you what kind of needle's in here right now anyway. So that's got to come out, and I'm sure it's old and been used, and so we will change this out. Huh, it actually looks like it's a denim needle too, but like I say, it's probably old enough where we should change it. Okay, so just to familiarize people with how to install a needle into a sewing machine, you have a round side and a flat side. You can see that there. So the flat side always goes away from you. It goes up inside the needle housing. Get the thread out of the way. So that goes up as far as you can get it in there. Finger tighten that set screw, then give it a little extra twist with the screwdriver and you should be good to go there. Alright, so because this bowl I am going to do it two-tone, I'm going to alternate between natural color cord and then my dyed cord. We're going to start the bottom out of the natural color cord, so I need to take this black bobbin out. We'll use that later. And put a white bobbin in. At the top, I'm going to install a white spool of thread. All right, so that's that. Always double check. I always keep a piece of scraps around for just to check, make sure everything's right, the tension and all. So let's just run this really quick. Yep, running good, both sides. Okay, so let me tell you my settings on my sewing machine for this zigzag stitch, because you want to use a zigzag with your rope bowls. So the width I have at 6.0, which is pretty wide. I may end up narrowing that, but I'd rather have it really wide because I want it to land close to the center of each cord on either side of the stitch. My stitch length is 1.2 millimeters, and then tension, I mean, that is going to be per your machine. I have a 4.4 setting right now, but like I say, that may vary for your machine, so that's really not important. The important thing is your stitch width and your stitch length. For rope bowls, I find that the stitch length, the shorter the stitch length, it makes a more rigid bowl, so it stands up better. You have more thread and more structure there. All right, so let's get started on the base. So on previous rope bowls, to start the circular rope bowls, we did a spiral. You made a spiral and you pinned it, and then you sewed that up. So for this project, seeing we're going for a square bottom, we need to create a square to start. Now, because I mentioned earlier that the bowl will eventually slide over this part of my machine, you know, that is made for cuffs and sleeves and legs. So this is 3.5, do it that way so you can see, 3.5 wide. I measured the thickness is like about 2. I am going to start a base that's 3 inches, and then we'll expand from there, and then as we make the bowl, it'll kind of grow conically, so it'll be plenty large enough to go over this. So what we want to do initially is take 3 inches and then loop that back onto itself like that. You can take a pin, pin that at the top, and then another one at the bottom. There we go. All right, so that's our first part of it. So we will take this, and run a zigzag stitch to the end. Then we'll pull the pins out, and then we're going to flip that around again and then sew back up the other way. And we'll keep doing that until we end up with a 3-inch square essentially. So there we are, one row. Pull those guys out. Let's trim our threads now. Now there are actually two ways you could do this, although, no, this way, I was going to say you could run it back up itself that way. Actually, yeah, let's do that. We'll run the first loop back up on itself like this. That way you have it cleans up that tag end there. So now we do want to fold it back. Fold it back again like that. And then pin that. And you basically just keep doing this until you end up with a unit that is, like I say, 3 by 3. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and then we'll talk about the next thing to do after I get it to the right size. Now the one thing you want to make very good care of is when you fold these over that your bottoms are even when you start a new row. All right, Busters, just want to show you. So far this side is coming out nice. I noticed this side was starting to shrink a little bit, so I'm making sure that I have this one a little bit longer, so when I keep going, it's even with this end. And that way, then when we start wrapping around with the cord, that'll kind of straighten itself out. But yeah, you don't want it to run here at an angle and start tapering. So just, yeah, be mindful of this beginning part is kind of crucial. It makes everything, making it even now makes everything come out even later on. So far we're 2 inches that way. We're about 3 1/4. And yeah, we're staying pretty much 3 1/4. Okay, so we need to go another 1 1/4 then to make this square. Alright, we are 3 inches across, if you see that. A little more. So, let's see, if I go one more time, what does that make that? Okay, yeah. Sorry if you can't see this. Yeah, here, maybe I do it like that. Okay, let's see what we are here. There we go. Now I can see it and you can see it. All right. One more course and then that should do it. Okay, there we are. So that's all you'll need the pins for. Come off any of your loose ends. Okay, so there's our square base. Hey Busters, it's your Big Kahuna here. All right, we're about halfway through this project. So this is going to be the end of part 1 on this square bottom rope bowl. I promise someday I'm going to learn to film a sewing project that doesn't take an hour. But at this point, it is going to end up being a 2-parter. So right now we've shown you how to strip down an old bowl and then create the square bottom on the new bowl. And in part 2, we'll finish up the bowl and we'll attempt the flared top. All right, well, thanks for watching. Don't forget, subscribe, ring the notification bell, give me a thumbs up if you like what you've seen so far, and don't forget to donate at Buy Me a Coffee. And so we'll see you on part 2. We'll love you all. Peace out, baby, and go bust out some art.